A very good evening to all of you and welcome to the news tonight, where we get you the day's top stories from India and across the world. I'm Tracy Shilshi and let's head straight to the headlines. Gujarat passes the controversial Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime for the third time. The new law allows phone taps as admissible evidence. The Supreme Court issues notice to senior BJP leader L.K. Advani and 18 others in the Babri demolition case. Petition seeks charges to be restored against them. Flood waters recede in Jammu and Kashmir, but the death toll rises to 16, with 6 more bodies being recovered from Budgam district. India sends warships and planes to help around 400 Indians stuck in Yemen. Fresh attacks by the Arab coalition kill 40 Houthi rebels. And former New Zealand captain Daniel Vettori retires from international cricket. In an 18-year career, Vettori took 705 wickets and scored 7,000 runs. Our top focus this evening. The Gujarat government today passed the controversial anti-terror bill that failed to get presidential assent thrice. The renamed legislation retains provisions like allowing police to tap telephonic conversations and submit them in court as evidence. The Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill 2015 was approved by majority vote. The opposition Congress, though, put up a stiff resistance to the bill and walked out of the House over its controversial provisions.
After being rejected twice, the stringent Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill was finally passed on Tuesday. It allows law enforcement agencies to tap telephones, make confessions made to police admissible in court, and suspects to be detained longer than at present.
मुझको में जो हमने प्रावधान रखे वो खास करके पुलिस को इन्वेस्टिगेशन में ज़्यादा सुविधा और सरलता प्राप्त हो, उसको काफ़ी व्यापकता स्कोप मिले और पुलिस जो एविडेंस एकत्र करती है इसमें अभी जो टेक्नोलॉजी का यूज़ होता है, समझ लो कि कोई आतंकवादी मोबाइल से या सैटेलाइट फोन से कोई इंस्ट्रक्शन देता है और कोई बम धमाका होता है, तो ऐसे जो टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके हुए जो लोग ऐसे गंभीर प्रकार की गुनाहित कृत्य करते हैं, ऐसे लोगों ने जो इंस्ट्रूमेंट यूज किए हैं, जो टेक्नोलॉजी यूज की है, उसी टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करके उनके अगेंस्ट में कोर्ट में केस भी पुरवार कर सके.
The Gujarat Assembly passed the law after the opposition Congress walked out without voting on the contentious clauses of the legislation.
कानून बनता है लॉ एंड ऑर्डर और आवाम के हित के लिए. अनफॉर्चुनेटली गुजरात में और इस देश में बीजेपी कानून को भी पॉलिटिकल माइलेज के लिए यूज करती है. हमने कहा कि दो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने गुजको के 3 सेक्शन हटाने को बोले हैं, तब आप ये नहीं कर रहे हो, ये अल्ट्रा वायरस होगा और हम इस पाप में साथ नहीं दे सकते. हमें हाउस छोड़ के निकलना पड़ा.
The bill is said to be on the lines of the Maharashtra Control of Organised Crime Act. It was rejected in 2004 and 2008 by then Presidents APJ Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil. Both suggested amendments in provisions related to telephone interception and confessions to police being considered as admissible evidence. The bill was passed for a third time and is pending with the President. The Assembly passed a fresh draft of the bill with a new name, the Gujarat Control of Terrorism and Organised Crime Bill.
You will find in the last 2 decades, we had TADA, we had POTA, we had similar laws. And those laws, unfortunately, did not serve the purpose for which they were in fact enacted. This law also, I am afraid, is likely to be misused unless Gujarat government has some device to check this abuse.
जहाँ तक सुरक्षा का मामला है, उसमें किसी को कोई आपत्ति नहीं होनी चाहिए. लेकिन अगर किसी को राजनीतिक प्रतिद्वंदियों को दबाने के लिए, राजनीतिक प्रतिद्वंदियों की जासूसी करने के लिए यह कानून बनाया गया है, आम आदमी को दबाने के लिए यह कानून बनाया गया है, तो ये बहुत गलत है.
Justifying the provisions, the statements and objects laid down in the bill state that it's necessary in the present day when organized criminal syndicates make extensive use of wire and oral communication. The statement also adds that existing laws are inadequate to curb the menace of organized crimes. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, so let's take a look at really what are the concerns regarding this act. Is it really draconian or is it the need of the hour? We've got Manish Chibbar, who's a senior editor with the Indian Express, joining us in studio this evening. Thanks so much, Manish, for joining us. First of all, it's really old wine in a new bottle. It's just renamed. Everything is pretty much the same as how it was when the president earlier, of course, rejected it thrice. Give us a sense really of the politics of it.
It's all political. It's all semantics. Basically, the BJP, Gujarat has been with the BJP for the last so many years now, almost 2 decades now. So it's basically they are trying to send out a political message that they are firm on organized crime, they are firm on terrorism. But there have been questions raised about the bill, the clauses, and the constitutionality of the bill itself, though that has still to be taken to a proper court for it to be adjudicated upon. But politics, why I say it is all about politics is that successive governments at the center, including once when NDA was ruling in 2004, the NDA appointed Mr. Kalam, the then president. He also returned this bill.
That's right.
So thereafter, it was all a slugfest between BJP ruled Gujarat and a Congress ruled center, with the state government then led by Mr. Modi accusing the center of stonewalling this important piece, as they would call it, which would assist the state government in its fight against organized crime, especially because similar law was already in place in neighboring states of Maharashtra and in Delhi, where law and order is a central subject. So that is why it has all been a political landmine. And hopefully now again, this bill will come to the, once they have passed it, so governor has the power to recommend it to the center and send it to the president for his assent. And then you'll have yet another round of politics.
Also, let's talk about the concerns, Manish, really as a citizen, really as a person of Gujarat. This gives a lot of power to the police as far as what we are reading, at least at this point of time. When we get into the nitty-gritties, we don't know as well. But at the look of it, it gives a lot of power to the police, and this means a lot, especially in a state where, the police has been seen time again with a lot of critical eyes, working in tandem with the state government. That is also a big concern on one hand.
Exactly. A former Gujarat Minister of State for Home, Mr. Amit Shah, who's now the BJP president, he's still, under questions, his actions as the Home Minister and especially of the charge of misusing the police for his political ends and his personal ends. They are still there. So in such a state, and when so many of senior IPS officers they continue to be in jail, many of them were bailed out only recently. So how can you give so much powers to the state police, especially because of their track record? And I am not saying or suggesting for a moment that police or the cops they are different elsewhere, but Gujarat, because of its peculiar set of problems and also their track record, I think they could easily have handled it better.
All right, Manish Chibbar of the Indian Express, thanks so much for joining us, shedding light really on this particular issue. You can, of course, as a viewer, also react to us on Facebook and Twitter as well on rajyasabha.tv.com. Meanwhile, let's head on to some more news. And the Supreme Court today served notices to senior BJP leader LK Advani and several other party leaders in the 22-year-old Babri demolition case. The top court asked them to reply to that petition that challenges dropping of criminal charges against them.
The Babri demolition case has returned to haunt senior BJP leaders. The Supreme Court has sent notice to party patriarch LK Advani and 18 other leaders, asking them to respond within 4 weeks to a petition that seeks to restore criminal charges against them. The CBI was also sent a separate notice to explain the delay in moving the top court against the Allahabad High Court order. In 2010, the Allahabad High Court dropped conspiracy charges against these leaders in the Babri demolition case.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने हाजी महबूब की पिटीशन को पर नोटिस करते हुए दूसरी साइड को कहा है कि वो इस मामले में जवाब दें। नोटिस जो वहाँ ड्रॉप हुए थे, जो लोग उसमें जो मेन एक्यूज्ड थे, उसमें मिस्टर आडवाणी, मिस्टर कल्याण सिंह, मिस उमा भारती और 20 और लोग हैं, 15 और लोग हैं जिनके खिलाफ हुए।
आज जब सेंट्रल में भाजपा सरकार आई, उस वक्त अब राजनाथ जी जो हैं गृह मंत्री हैं, सीबीआई उन्हीं के अंडर में काम करती है। फिर ये आवाज़ उठाई गई कि इनको इस केस से निकाल दिया जाए।
Apart from the notice, the apex court has given additional time to the CBI to prepare its case in support of its appeal against the Allahabad High Court order. Meanwhile, opposition parties hit out at the investigating agency for deliberately delaying the case.
CBI was dragging their feet and this investigation was going at snail's pace. Because important people are involved, a criminal act, demolition of the Babri Mosque, whoever was behind the conspiracy or behind the action, they were still not brought to the limelight. So the fact that the Supreme Court has found this lethargy on the part of the CBI investigative agency is very right, very appropriate, and that direction I hope things will move fast now.
Ever since this Babri Masjid demolition and the communal rights before the Babri Masjid demolition and after the Babri Masjid demolition has resulted an increase in the terror activities in the country. So this is something which we have to be very careful about, and I would urge upon the judiciary to expedite this case. If they are innocent, leave them, but if they are responsible, then they must be punished.
The BJP, however, maintains it's a routine course for the court and the leaders will come out clean.
कानूनी प्रक्रिया है और ये अदालत का मामला है और अदालत में अपना पक्ष है, ये लोग भी रख रहे हैं, पहले भी रखा है।
Other leaders who were issued notices include Union Minister Uma Bharti and Rajasthan Governor Kalyan Singh. The leaders face charges connected to 2 FIRs in the 1992 demolition case. The first alleges a conspiracy by lakhs of unknown car sevaks, while the second FIR specifically accuses BJP leaders of making inflammatory speeches to incite volunteers. The 2 cases were handed over to the CBI, which filed a composite charge sheet in October 1993. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In other news, the Union Cabinet today took some key decisions. Among them are gas pooling for fertilizer or the urea sector, the 2,000-kilometre-long Haldia-Jagdishpur pipeline to be set up at a cost of 10,000 crore rupees, and the gross budgetary support for strategic storage program of crude oil in Visakhapatnam, Mangalore and Kuddur. But there was also a discussion that took place on the land ordinance. It's the ordinance, in fact, to lapse on the 5th of April. Let's find out from Vishal Dahiya, our correspondent, who's in fact joining us from the capital for more on that. Vishal, what are you hearing from your sources as far as the land bill is concerned?
Well, Tracy, the government, after the cabinet was over, the government did not say it in so many words. In fact, the official response of Ravi Shankar Prasad, the telecom minister who was briefing media after the cabinet meeting, was that there is a constitutional process involved and the government will let us know as and when the process is completed. But our sources say that the government has finally sent in the recommendation to the president for re-promulgation of the ordinance which deals with the land acquisition bill. Now, this has been done keeping in mind, and in fact, I was talking about it around 6 p.m. also before the cabinet meeting began, that the ordinance, the existing ordinance, will lapse on 5th of April. That is 4 days from now, and for the next 4 days, the Prime Minister himself is out of town. He is not here. So the cabinet's recommendation, which has to go to the president, could not have been done in the next 4 days. He would be in Odisha tomorrow, then in Mumbai on 2nd of April, and on 3rd and 4th of April he will be in Bengaluru. So obviously a decision had to be taken by the cabinet. Our sources say that that decision has been taken. A recommendation has been sent to the president. Now it can only be officially announced once the assent has come or the approval comes from the president on the ordinance. ordinance, and that is also likely given the fact that the government has been keeping the president in loop on this particular issue, and there were certain meetings which were held between the government, a few of the government ministers who went on calling on the president just after the first half of the parliament session came to an end. Also very significant out there that just a few days ago the cabinet had taken, the CCPA rather, the Cabinet Committee on Parliamentary Affairs had taken a decision to prorogue the 234th session of Rajya Sabha, which was considered to be a step short of re-promulgating the ordinance on land acquisition bill. So obviously, as of now, our sources say that decision has been taken. It has been recommended to the president.
Okay.
The official word on the government might come after an approval comes in from the president on this.
All right, we leave it there for now. Vishal Dahiya, thanks so much for joining us for the moment on that meeting and what eventually is most probably going to be taking place on that land ordinance, like he pointed out, to of course lapse on the 5th of April. Also discussed at the cabinet was of course the Kashmir issue, the flood threat in the valley reduced today with improved weather and receding water levels in the Jhelum River. The death toll, however, rose to 16 with 6 more bodies recovered from Budgam district. The centre has assured more help if necessary after the Met Office warned of heavy rains over the next few days.
The Kashmir Valley got a respite on Tuesday from a rising Jhelum River. There was no rain, a clearer sky and receding floodwaters in different parts of the region. Fire and Emergency Services Department swung into action. Nearly 25 tenders with dewatering pumps were stationed across capital Srinagar to pump out water from the roads. NDRF continues to carry out rescue and relief operations. The centre has assured that the situation is now under control.
जहाँ पे हम मेजर करते हैं वहाँ पे लगभग 3 फीट का पानी नीचे गया है और इसी तरह अन्य इलाकों में भी. सो मुझे लगता है कि स्थिति में काफी सुधार आई है, लेकिन ये केवल फ्लड की बात है.
We have given the call to the general public, especially जो भी हमारे यहाँ पर बुजुर्ग लोग हैं, पेशेंट्स हैं, बच्चे हैं, उनको कहा है कि सेफ जोन में आप एंटर कीजिए.
अभी सिचुएशन कंट्रोल में है और हमारा टीम वहाँ काम कर रहे हैं और राज्य सरकार के साथ मिल करके और हमारे केंद्र का वहाँ जितने भी काम करने वाला टीम पहुँचे हुए हैं, इसलिए कोई अभी घटना की बात नहीं है, वो सब नियंत्रण में है.
The national highway linking the valley to Jammu was also reopened after it was shut down due to landslides.
1-2 दिन पहले यहाँ पर काफ़ी ज़्यादा लैंडस्लाइड्स आ गए थे और कल इसको थोड़ा बहुत क्लियर किया गया था क्योंकि कुछ व्हीकल्स जो थी चिनैनी में, समरौली में और कुद में कुछ स्टैंडर्ड हो गई थी व्हीकल्स, तो रास्ता ना खुलने की वजह से कल जो है इनको यहाँ से वापस ये चले गए थे. फॉर द टाइमिंग ये खोल दिया गया था, तो अभी तक ये खुला ही है और मौसम को देखते हुए अभी हम ये देख रहे हैं कि ये कब तक खुला रहेगा.
However, the opposition parties are not happy with the steps taken by the government so far. They accuse the ruling PDP and BJP of delay in rescue and relief operations. National Conference walked out of the assembly over the government's alleged inaction to prevent the disaster.
हमने ये कहा था ये डिस्कस कर लीजिए, पहले एक्शन लीजिए अफसरों का. भाई अफसर कहाँ थे? अफसर सोए हुए थे जब ये लोग मर गए. उनको चाहिए था इनको रेस्क्यू करके किसी जगह पहुंचाए थे. एक अनसेफ मकान में उनको रखा गया. Who is responsible? Government is responsible.
Meanwhile, the Met Office has warned of more heavy rains over the next few days. It raised concerns of more flooding across the valley. The centre has assured help and kept more paramilitary forces on standby. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, India has stepped up efforts to evacuate trapped Indians in a war-torn Yemen. The centre has deployed warships and planes to help around 400 Indians waiting to be rescued. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has sought help from Saudi Arabia in the process. Meanwhile, an airstrike targeting the Houthi rebels killed at least 40 at a camp in North Yemen as the Arab coalition stepped up attacks in the region.
As Saudi-led coalition airstrikes gain momentum in Yemen, the move has adversely affected the pace of evacuations of Indians stranded there. At least 400 Indians are waiting to be evacuated from Yemen as the centre deployed warships and planes to speed up the evacuation process. The Navy has dispatched INS Mumbai and INS Tarkash for evacuations of Indians besides 2 passenger ships from Cochin. 2 Air India flights that were scheduled to bring back Indians failed to go ahead, awaiting clearances from overseas authorities. The government says it is in constant touch with the local leaders to ensure safe travel of evacuees. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also spoke to King Salman and sought help from Saudi Arabia.
Approximately 4,000 Indian nationals remain in the conflict zone in Yemen. As a government, we've launched a national endeavour to ensure their safe return back to India. As a first step today, 400 Indian nationals are being evacuated from Aden by the sea route.
The Arab coalition indicated the strikes will continue for a considerable period of time. Warplanes targeting rebels bombed the runway of the international airport in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a. In another attack targeting Houthi militants, an airstrike killed at least 40 people at a camp for displaced. Yemen's foreign minister put the entire blame for the killings on the militants, denying any links to Saudi operations.
This is really untrue. They are always trying to have what is called a human shield. Houthis, they are going to places where there is some population or residential houses, and they are trying to put their weapons there. Sometimes also they use when there is some aeroplanes coming.
The fighting has brought civil war to the Arab country, which was already sliding into chaos. Yemen has now become the latest stage for Saudi Arabia's past struggle with Iran. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
A quick break here and still ahead. Negotiations pick up pace as deadline for Iran nuclear talks nears. We'll get you details in a bit.
Saudi Arabia leads coalition airstrikes. The conflict in Yemen. Dragging in West Asia and the Gulf. What will be the end game? Watch the big picture at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha television.
Let's get you more national news now. The Supreme Court dismissed a petition from some Jat students seeking reservation benefits under the other backward class quota in postgraduate medical and dental courses. The Apex Court had on the 17th of March set aside the erstwhile UPA government's notification to include Jats in the central list of OBCs. Today, it told the students that the issue was already decided and there was no vested right in the favour of the Jat students. The students had not opted for the All India Counselling for a better choice of colleges in subsequent state-level counselling. The petition said, as a consequence, the Supreme Court decision, the students were neither here nor there. With that, let's get you more updates from across the country in Nationwide. The Income Tax Department published names of 18 entities that owe over 500 crores to the Exchequer. This came after the Central Board of Direct Taxes directed the IT department to post the names on its website to force them to pay their dues. Goldsuk Trade India Limited and Blue Information Technology Limited topped the list with dues of over 75 crores. 11 of the defaulters are based in Gujarat. Some of the service tax proposals announced in Budget 2015-16 will come into effect from tomorrow. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had come out with a host of proposals last month to rationalize the service tax. The rate was also raised from 12.36 to 14%, but it will come into effect on a later date. Meanwhile, the benchmark Sensex fell by about 18 points to close at 27,957, wrapping up 2014-15 with a hefty 25% gain, its best performance in 6 fiscal years. After jumping 205 points in early trade, the 30-share index frittered away gains on emergence of profit booking and ended with a marginal fall of 18 points or 0.07%. Vice Admiral P. Murugesan was accorded the Guard of Honour today as he took charge as the Vice Chief of Indian Naval Staff. The Vice Chief S. Lamba was appointed the Chief of the Southern Naval Command that was earlier designated to SPS Chima, who will now serve in the Western Naval Command. International news now. In negotiations over Iran's nuclear program has now reached the final hours in Switzerland as foreign ministers from the P5+1 nations and the Iranian foreign minister go on. Negotiators worked late into the night and are continuing talks in an all-out effort to meet the self-imposed deadline of midnight tonight to reach a consensus.
Iran nuclear talks have gone down the wire. With just hours to go before the end of a self-imposed deadline to produce an agreement, diplomats of Iran and world powers are weighing options in Lucerne. However, they say that the talks have a good chances of success. Negotiators are seeking a general agreement by midnight and a comprehensive deal in June.
Я действительно планирую вернуться и принять участие в завершающей части министерского заседания «шестерки», Перспективы у этого раунда переговоров неплохие, я бы даже сказал, хорошие. Шансы велики.
可以说称之为马拉松式的谈判，应该说已经到了一个最后的冲刺的阶段。这次7国外长云集瑞士洛桑，那么就是为了在一个更高的层面上。
The talks between US, Britain, France, China, Germany and Iran are focused on curbing the nuclear program to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons while easing sanctions that have crippled that country's economy. However, there are voices of dissent regarding the deal with concerns of possible proxy wars. The US Congress has threatened to vote on increasing sanctions if a framework is not reached in March.
Exceedingly dangerous, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see the White House reaching out very publicly, but also very privately to key Democratic senators to make sure that they can maintain their veto authority over any of these dangerous sanctions bills that are coming down the pike.
It's a sophisticated country with a vision more and more powerful in the Middle East, and therefore on the Sunni side there might be temptation for some to support extremist groups to fight against Iran by proxy.
Despite the progress, substantive differences remain. These include the pace of sanctions relief and the nature of restrictions on Iran's nuclear research and development. It is to be seen if the diplomats are indeed able to iron those differences to reach a broad framework agreement by the end of the day that would be used as the basis of a final accord. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In fact, reports in the US saying that the Iran nuclear talks could go past tonight's deadline if it is useful to do so. That's, of course, what a senior US official is stating. Meanwhile, let's get you some news coming in from Nigeria. And what we are learning now is that with over half of Nigeria's states declared, former President General Buhari's all-progressive Congress is ahead by 2 million votes, and a tally of 30 of the 36 states showed that he pooled 12.9 million votes compared to Jonathan Goodluck's 10.2 million. The polling itself was marred by violence and rigging allegations over the weekend. A victory for General Buhari would make President Jonathan the first incumbent in Nigeria to lose an election. And now let's get you more international news and updates in Global Buzz. Activists continued protests over Bangladeshi blogger Washikur Rahman's killing on Monday. He was the second blogger in a month to be hacked to death on the streets of Dhaka. Bangladesh's People's Resurgence Platform, the Gonajagaran Manch, staged a protest in capital Dhaka demanding the strict action against the murderers. Search operations continue at the crashed site of the Germanwings plane to find bodies of the victims. 3 military all-terrain vehicles carrying investigators and specialized mountain emergency personnel were deployed to comb the remote side of the crashed Airbus A320. They are also looking for the second black box flight record. One man has been killed and another was seriously wounded after a shooting at a gate to the U.S. National Security Agency headquarters near Washington. NSA officers fired on a vehicle that refused to follow commands and charged a police vehicle blocking the road. One of the car's occupants died on the scene while the other was injured and taken to a local hospital. Peru declared an emergency after floods and landslides affected thousands of people after heavy rains. The government ordered immediate emergency measures to aid the victims affected by landslides in rivers which burst their banks. 19 more people were killed after a bus crash due to poor weather. At least 28 people have been killed and over 1,000 homes have been destroyed in the disaster so far. On to some cricket news now, and former New Zealand captain Daniel Vettori has announced his retirement from international cricket today. Vettori announced his decision 2 days after New Zealand's loss in the World Cup final against Australia. In a career spanning 18 years, Vettori has taken 705 wickets and scored close to 7,000 runs in all formats of the game. He became New Zealand's youngest ever Test player when he made his debut against England in February 1997 at the age of 18. He is the second highest wicket taker for his country after Sir Richard Hadlee. He also led his side in all formats of the game. Vettori had a successful World Cup, picking up 15 wickets in.
To be able to finish in a final, albeit without a win, I'm just very grateful for the amount of support I had, particularly from Brendan and the two Mikes to be able to get back from a number of injuries and to be here and to be part of it and to be hopefully a big contributing factor to us making that final is something I always treasure.
Perhaps we'll be seeing him in the commentary box soon. That's it on the news tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.